Hello, America. Bruce Bongard here, virtual presidential candidate under the Proudican Party. This event being sponsored by www.cf2008ontape.ning.com. Question and answers. Section 1, Economic Issues. Question 1, what is your best and quickest solution to help stop America's current economic downturn? Question number 2, how will your solution directly impact Americans, in particular retirees and workers who have lost their jobs? Now, before I begin, I think it's important to preface what our current economic situation is. We're going through a economic downturn consisting of a housing problem, housing crisis problem, a financial disaster on Wall Street. We've got energy issues going on. We've got jobs being lost. We've got a immigration issue. We've got healthcare issues. We've got this whole smorgasbord of issues that are coming into play. And as a mechanical engineer, design engineer, what engineers like to do is take things, combine them, bundle them up, and package them into a set of solutions. And so what I've come up with is what I call an outside-the-box set of prolutions, progressive solutions. And so having said all that, I'd like to start by saying, back on a few months ago, President George Bush basically implied a challenge when he said he didn't have a magic wand to kind of wave over our national economy to kind of solve the problem. Well, here's the thing. I for one, think that this particular prolution, given the right constraints, the right approach, infrastructural-wise changes, which are going to be quite extensive, that need to take place, I think that this prolution has the effect to essentially catapult us out of our current economic downturn. And how will it do that? Well, here's what it does. In essence, it takes a look at productivity and efficiency and looks at it in slightly a different way. So instead of looking at it from a perspective of resources in terms of hardware, in terms of man hours or whatever into solving a solution, instead we are now looking at it from a perceptional or paradigm shift type of approach. So the solution is a productivity and efficiency improvement in our daily work schedules. Now, this prolution actually creates a balance between employer and employee-based benefits. And so it has a nice blend of both of those. So it provides more productivity for the employer, while at the same time it gives employees more benefits in terms of time off, in terms of more flexible schedule, in terms of travel time, in terms of longer vacations. It also, from an educational standpoint, it breaks things up into smaller pockets of time, which studies have shown that when you break education and learning up into smaller brackets of time with breaks in between, it's a more efficient and productive way in which to study and in which to learn. So having said all that, the biggest change though for everybody is really going to be this paradigm shift, and this is going to be the concession. This is what people are actually going to have to kind of deal with, grapple with, because it is an outside-the-box solution. But having said all that, here's what the idea is. I call it the Proudican Calendar, after the Proudican Party, of course, and it is a perennial calendar. It's a much simpler calendar. It is broken up into a seasonal arrangement, and for me as an engineer, all engineers look for that eureka moment where everything kind of clicks or everything makes sense. Well, the one night that all this kind of came to me or whatever, it was definitely a eureka moment for me. So what it is it consists of, instead of 52 weeks, it is also a 12-month schedule, but it's 40 weeks. It is, instead of it being a 7-day week structure, it is now looking at things from a 9-day week structure. Okay? So out here on the outskirts, external to the majority of the body of the calendar, are what are called external global holidays. Now, your employer would actually be able to give you these days as off days virtually for free. it's external to the rest of the calendar, and so there's no cost to them to supply these days to you. So at the beginning of January, April, July, and October, at the beginning of each season, there would be one of these external holidays. And then again at the end of December, there would also be one of these holidays. The blue represents work days. The yellow represents days off. So you'll notice that there's a midweek concept that I'm throwing in here. That would actually be Wednesday, and you would have that day off. Who wouldn't like to have Wednesdays off? You know, you can go run errands, you can get caught up on things, you can travel, you can virtually do, whatever you need to do education-wise. You can use that as a study day. Teachers can use it as a day to prepare for lectures for later in the week, that sort of thing. So here's where the balance comes into play. So now we have a 52, on the Gregorian calendar, we have 52 weeks at 40 hours as a standard schedule. And on this calendar, it would be just the inverse. It would be a 40-week schedule with 52 hours. Now, what I'm saying that we should do, instead of looking at it as 52 hours, we actually bump that up just a hair to 54 hours. And what that will do is actually it will drive up our GDP, our gross domestic product, by as much as 4%, if not more. Now, breaking things up into smaller blocks of time is a more productive approach, and here's why. So we now have three-day periods of 80 of these 3-day periods of time. So if you take a look at our current calendar, we have 52, so 80 versus 52, that's an increase. But now you're trying to squeeze productivity into 3 days. So you have people's mindsets and their perception into thinking jobs and aspects of their work environment that they work in terms of 3-day allotments versus our current calendar, which is 5-day allotments. So right there's a net push, perception-wise, for productivity increases. Now, in terms of employer, let's say you can distribute your workforce going from Monday through Friday through those 7 days. So those 7 days, multiply that by 40 weeks. That gives you 280 days. In our current calendar, we have 52 weeks multiplied by 5 days only gives you 260 days. So that's a net increase of productivity for an employer of 20 days. From a employee standpoint, what we have is actually 3 days off. So the employee would have 3 days off on an annual basis. Multiply that by 40 weeks. That gives you 120 days. Add on these 5 external holidays. That's 125 days off on an annual basis. Versus current calendar, 52 weeks multiplied by only Saturday and Sunday off, 104 days. And let's just throw in that precess day, that precessional day, and make it 105 days. So that 125 days versus 105 days, that's a net increase of 20 extra days off from an employee standpoint. Now, here's the thing. If we give you 20 extra days off, and an employer gives you 20 extra days off, we're talking about a energy conservation approach. So no longer is that petrochemical fuel being burned or used, so we're tackling energy from an energy demand perspective. So that now is reducing down the usage of fuel by upwards of 20 days on an annual basis. You may be traveling or whatever doing on those days, but hopefully you're not traveling as much as when you commute. So that in essence is the calendar. And here's an interesting part. The thing I was talking about, longer vacation, I don't think I've described that yet. Let's say you wanted to go on a vacation across Christmas holiday time frame through New Year's. Because of these outside external days off, that actually would be a window of 17 days of time. Now, what would you have to pay for that? There would be 9 days of 9 hours. That's 81 hours. Well, if we try the same equivalent with our current work schedule of 2 weeks off, that would be 80 hours, and that would only give you 14 days off. So here you are getting a net increase of 3 extra days off at the cost of only 1 additional hour of additional time off from work. Pretty interesting, huh? Well, here's what I would like to do. Starting on November 11th, I'm throwing this out there as a global experiment to everybody. I want everybody to try and focus on how they can adapt this schedule within their work environments, within their daily schedules. And what I'd like to do is then take those funds, channel whatever cost, and I would treat this as a one-time user license fee after January. Take those funds and then funnel that money into my solution number 2, which is a national energy solution, which I'll get to in a little while. But as you can see, there's definitely growth that is going to be needed to add these couple days. So we're talking about jobs being created. We're talking about a whole infrastructural change, industries being created to promote that. Entertainment, in payroll, accounting, scheduling, software changes, all that is going to come into mix. And so that is definitely going to be increasing jobs across the board. Once again, Proudican Calendar, 9 days per week. My name is Bruce Bongard, virtual presidential candidate under the Proudican Party, saying thank you for your attention and take care all.